Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at something a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So we're diving into a passage from the Quran,
Okay.
specifically Surah At-Takathur.
Yes.
And this is it's a short surah, but it's very powerful.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting reflection on material pursuits and our ultimate destination.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is something that we all get caught up in, the abundance of life, the possessions, the achievements, all the experiences that we have.
Exactly.
But this surah really encourages us to pause and consider a different perspective.
I think that's a great way to put it, because it's interesting. The surah doesn't condemn those pursuits outright.
Right.
But it highlights how easily they can become distractions from what truly matters.
It doesn't. It opens very, very directly. Abundance distracts you.
Yeah.
And it's just so direct. There's no sugarcoating.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some things that you find yourself getting distracted by in the day-to-day?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I think that's a question we all grapple with, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a mirror, the surah reflecting our tendency to get caught up in those things, the fleeting aspects of life.
Mm-hmm.
To really appreciate its depth, I think it's helpful to understand where it sits within the Quran as a whole.
Yeah.
Surahs are like chapters in a book,
Right.
each with its own kind of theme or message.
Yeah.
And the Quran as a whole holds immense significance for Muslims as the divine word of God.
So it's not just a historical text, it's a living guide.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the Surah At-Takathur, it uses this very striking image. It says, until you visit the graveyards.
Oh, wow.
And now, this isn't meant to be morbid,
Right.
but it's a potent reminder of our mortality.
Yes.
And I'm curious, how do you think that impacts someone's perspective on life?
Well, I think it forces you to confront the reality that everything in this world is temporary.
Mm-hmm.
We're all headed to the same destination.
Right.
Eventually, so it's like a gut check,
Yeah.
It makes you reassess your priorities.
Absolutely. Facing our finite time can be such a powerful catalyst for shifting our focus. And this leads to another striking aspect of the surah,
Okay.
which is this repetition of, indeed you will know, certainly you will know.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
It's emphasizing the inevitability of what's to come.
Mm-hmm.
There's no escaping this knowledge, this reckoning, and then it throws this curveball.
Yeah.
If you knew with knowledge of certainty, you would see the inferno.
Right.
This verse feels so heavy.
It does, and it raises some really interesting questions, like what does knowledge of certainty actually mean here?
Right.
In Islamic belief, it refers to a level of understanding that transcends doubt.
Okay.
It's not just knowing something intellectually, but experiencing it with your whole being.
So we're living in this hazy state of uncertainty.
Right.
But if we truly grasped the reality of the afterlife, the consequences of our actions, we would see the inferno clearly.
Exactly. The surah contrasts this uncertainty with seeing with the eye of certainty.
Yeah.
Highlighting that stark difference between our current state and the undeniable reality of what's to come.
Right. And then it shifts gears completely.
It does.
Then on that day, you will be questioned about the bliss.
Yeah.
What a profound change in focus.
It's a brilliant transition.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It redirects our attention from those material distractions
Right.
and potential punishment to something far greater, striving for bliss.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on what bliss means in this context?
Well, it seems to point to the ultimate reward in the afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
Eternal peace and joy. A state of being with God.
And it subtly reminds us that it's not just about what we believe,
Right.
but how we live, our actions, our intentions, our relationships with God and with others.
Mm-hmm.
All of that contributes to our journey towards bliss.
There's so much to unpack in such a short passage.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we're not just here to accumulate stuff, but to build something meaningful, something that transcends this material world.
Exactly. And if we think of this life as a journey,
Right?
what are we packing for it? Are we focused on the fleeting or the eternal?
Mm-hmm.
The surah invites us to reflect on how its message might apply to our own lives,
Yes.
our own priorities. What are you taking away from this deep dive?
Well, I think what I'm taking away is that we need to be mindful of the distractions in this life.
Yeah,
And really focus on what truly matters.
absolutely.
Building those meaningful connections and striving for that eternal bliss.
I think that's a great takeaway.
Yeah.
And I would add to that, this idea of the eye of certainty really struck me.
Yes.
What would it be like to see the world with that kind of clarity?
Right.
Without the distractions, without the doubts, how would that change our choices?
Yeah.
How would that change our priorities?
That's a really great question to think about.
Yeah, something for all of us to ponder as we go about our day.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
It was really enlightening, and I hope our listeners got a lot out of it as well.
Me too.
Until next time.
Take care.